I was sitting on Hill 425, overlooking the valley, and we were there. Got there on the hill. It was a Marine Corps Recon OP, a permanent hill. They'd send teams up, replace that type of thing. So we were taken up. I want to say on maybe the 21st or 22nd, and got there and got our bunkers. Who was going to be where? And then that night, we did what we always did on OPs. We threw frag grenades. These OPs been up there for years, surrounded by concertina wire and 1,000 cans from Marines throwing the C-Rat can down there. And we had this new boot lieutenant with us, straight out of officer training. And he still had that feeling that, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do it the right way. So anyway, we were throwing our frags at night, pop-up flares, having some fun. He come running up, okay, what's going on? And stupidly, we told him that we're throwing to kill rats. Don't you ever do that again. You're wasting government money, et cetera, et cetera. Well, a couple of nights passed, and we got to Christmas Eve. And the two guys in the bunker with me, Short Round Kellum and Mario Molinos, they were just upset. So they threw a flare grenade down and then started throwing some frags and opened up with the M60 machine gun. Here comes Lieutenant, what's going? And the best part of the story is we had an Army dog handler with us. And he said, I'll take care of it. He runs down towards the wire, comes back firing over his shoulder, yelling, they're in the wire. There was nobody in the wire except rats. And to shorten the story up, the next day, the lieutenant came by, and his name was John Mann, came by, and he says, we need to throw some frag grenades at night, keep those rats quiet. Because there was hundreds and hundreds of rats down there, and they made noise all night long. So it made us feel better to throw a grenade down there, knowing it's rats, but just in case it's not.
When did you join the Navy?
1966, I joined as a naval reservist. It was a 2-year active duty. Yeah, 2 years inactive, 2 years reserve duty, 2 years active duty, 2 years reserve duty. And once I got off active duty, I just stayed. I put 30 years in, combined active and reserve.
So you go into the Navy in 1966. Vietnam certainly is heating up in 66, but it's, it hasn't become what it's going to become yet in 66.
Right.
When you joined the Navy, was Vietnam in your mind at all?
No, not at all. Not till actually after Corps School, I went to Puerto Rico at the hospital there. And that was just the time that it started heating up. And that was time for the first Tet Offensive. And with the Tet Offensive, I got orders to the Marine Corps. After being there only 3 months, I upset the command master chief. And so I was the only one that had less than 2 years on the platform who got sent away.
So it's okay. So you'd been in service for a while before you got sent to the Marines.
Yeah, it had the 2 years active reserve. Then I was just onto my active duty, which would have lasted for 2 years, lasted for 3. But yeah, and so that's when things were firing up, and we got the orders. There's like 5 of us.
Wow.
And, went to Camp Pendleton.
Now, when you went into the Corps, into the Navy, did you intend to become a corpsman?
Yeah, well, I was hoping that they would. Of course, anybody wanted to be a corpsman, they grabbed them right away. But yeah, I was looking forward to the opportunity first to serve at the Marine Corps, but more importantly, I thought that might give me a step up to try to get to medical school. And I really wasn't smart enough to get to medical school, went a different direction. But yeah, so I had 2 reasons to try and become a corpsman.
And so when you went into the Navy, you had the Marine Corps in your mind already.
Yes.
So when you got word, you're based in Puerto Rico, and you got word that you're going to switch to service with the Marines,
Right.
that's what you had wanted from the beginning.
Yes.
What was it about serving as a Navy corpsman with the Marines that was attractive to you?
Well, the only way I could accomplish both objectives, hopefully med school, hopefully at the Marine Corps. Um, uh, Again, I watched too damn many movies of John Wayne and all that, not heroism, but um, doing what you need to do in the face of adversity. And I really, and I always wanted to be a Marine. Again, watching those movies. So I accomplished that real quick. And the other one, it just didn't pan out.
So you were attracted not only to the Marines, but to being with the Marines in combat situations.
Yes.
And so, do you remember at what point it kind of became clear to you? You know, you go into the Navy in 66. Vietnam is certainly heating up, but you say it's not really in your mind when you go into the Navy.
No, not at all.
But through your service, the first couple of years, of course, Vietnam is going to heat up very much. Do you have a recollection of when you realized that your trajectory and the trajectory of the war in Vietnam were going to come together?
With the Tet Offensive. The Navy sucked out a lot of the corpsmen from all the medical establishments. The Marine Corps pulled a lot of people in because the losses were certainly huge. There's a picture in my mind, it might have been Life magazine, and it shows a tank driving out of Way City, and there's bodies stacked on it, and there's a corpsman holding a bottle in the air with an IV. And it was all that sort of starts coming home. And then they sent me to Camp Pendleton for field med school. And then our instructors were veterans of Vietnam, and they let us know what we were going to get ourselves into. Camp Pendleton was sort of where you started to hit home, putting everything together. First, we had to bus from Pendleton to Triage Air Base. We got there, and they said our flight had been canceled. So they put us up in a bunch of little hotels in San Jose. And so we thought we died and gone to heaven, except we weren't old enough to buy beer or anything. And then we were walking back to the hotel, and we were squared away and slapping our feet on the ground. And a bunch of gals went driving by screaming insults at us. And that was sort of demoralizing. So that sticks in my mind today. And the flight itself, good Lord, it was just a long, long flight. We stopped in Anchorage, couldn't get off the plane. I guess they refueled, I don't know. And then flew to Okinawa. That was our first stop to get processed to be sent to Vietnam. Yeah. So the flight to Vietnam itself was about a 2.5, 3 hour flight, if I recall. And there was no somber. There wasn't many people, joking and screaming and hollering.
The insults that these girls shouted at you, they were anti-war?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what they said? I mean, we can guess generally, but did any of the particular phrases stick in your mind?
Old baby killer ship. Whatever was being yelled at that time of the world, that's what we heard, and it was demoralizing. We had in our mind that we were going to go over and do the job, save the world. We still weren't really tuned in to the political side of the house, but it was demoralizing.
As you think back of that flight from Okinawa into Da Nang, how would you describe your own state of mind? Excitement, anxious, looking forward to an adventure, a mix of things?
What started off as here we go, our turn. But as we're getting close, we started getting a little concerned. We see flashes out the window, and we thought that Da Nang was getting bombarded. Well, it was what they call HNI, harassment and interdiction fire. We're sending it out to areas that in the past the enemy had congregated. So once we landed, they had the big 6x trucks and moved us out of the airfield to a transient barracks.
Now, when you are flying into Vietnam, is your understanding that as a corpsman with Marines, that let's say you're out on patrol, and now this is before you've experienced anything, but just your training and what you're hearing from your instructors, you're out on patrol, walk into an ambush, there's a firefight. Are you a combatant until somebody calls corpsman up, at which point you put your weapon aside and then go tend to that person? So are you doing combat? Are you part of the combat until somebody needs attention, or do you just wait until somebody needs attention and not engage in the combat?
Never heard corpsman up. I was with Marine Recon, and we go out with anywhere from 5 to 10 people in the bush by ourselves, way out there. And we were never told to take a hill. We were told run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Too small to combat.
Okay.
Our job was to get as much information we could. I've sat on that off of trails, 25 yards off of trails, and see 40, 50, 60 of them diddy-bopping by. And our job was, okay, how many was that? What kind of uniforms were they wearing? Did they look tired? Did they look ragged? Did we see anything that might indicate a unit?
Okay. Yeah.
That was our job.
So as recon, then you're not out there to look for fights. You're out there to look for the enemy, to report intelligence, and to avoid fights.
Yes.
Yeah, to avoid detection.
Well, we were avoiding, but our job was to get the information to get back to the line units, the grunts, so they could go in and get in fights. But my first job was I was a rifleman first, a corpsman second. When you're out there that small a number, you can't have one guy sitting there, waiting for somebody to get hurt. And I went there to Recon, I volunteered for Recon on Okinawa, and they shouldn't have done this. The enlisted man's bar, group of here going, a group of here coming. And the coming guys, there was a lot of them that you could tell I just had to beat the craps out of them. Yellow skinned, the ones that came in that day, they hadn't given them new uniforms yet. And they talked about all the buddies that they missed, lost. And I got big ears. I'm listening to all this and boy, I don't want to be a grunt. So the morning following our landing in Da Nang, we were in a big Quonset hut. And mainly my flight was still all corpsman. And this major walked out and he said he was looking for some corpsman who wanted to go with Recon. Well, my hand went up quickly because I remembered what those poor grunts looked like back in Okinawa. And it was the best choice I ever made.
Wow. Now, so when you say you never heard corpsman up, is that because the unit you were with was so small, there wasn't a need for anybody to call it out? You would just be aware because you're so close together.
Yeah, they would have called me Dave or something.
I see. So the reason I asked that question is because guys who are going to Vietnam who are pretty certain they're going to face combat and they're going to be part of that. One of the questions they're asking themselves is, am I going to be able to, to stand up and fight? Am I going to be a reliable combatant? But it occurs to me that a corpsman has got this times two, that a corpsman in your situation has this times two, because not only, so here's my thought process, and I'm looking forward to your response. Not only am I going to be able to be a reliable combatant under stress, but am I also in that same context when needed, am I also going to be able to remember my training and be a reliable corpsman? It seems to me that the burden is 2 times what I often hear about, because you have to be concerned about rising to the level of performance in 2 very different areas. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. First, I had no problems or issues with wondering whether I do my job correctly in terms of the medical. I felt I was well trained. I had 16 weeks at hospital corps school, and then I think it was 9 or 10 weeks out of Camp Pendleton. So I had great training. The other part of the job, or the other part, could I do the job? I felt comfortable. The biggest part in my mind, which caused me the most concern, was earning my way into the team, being accepted as a member of the team. You were Doc, you were the corpsman, but you didn't make it until you were a team member. And that took a couple patrols that they saw that I could hack it physically, as well as not being stupid and doing things that I shouldn't have done. The enemy used to put what we call trail watchers off to the trails that, again, it was for recon. They even had anti-recon people dressed like us. But so once you're past them, you might be 100 meters past, and then you hear the sound of a shot. And then way out in front of you, you hear the sound of a shot. And so they were tracking you in a sense. And then it was the second or third time we got chased. We were chased a lot, but we got chased and the helicopter got shot up. And I always told, this happened twice, I always told people I was shot down in helicopters. Well, yeah, no, it was on extracts and we got shot up and they took us over drive. So I always say shot down, but we really got shot up. And we had a Huey gunship following behind us to get us to the LZ for extraction. And in a sense, it gave me understanding and maybe a little respect for the enemy. When you hear 2, 4, 6 M60 machine guns mounted on a helicopter, all being shot at the same time, that's a horrendous noise. And like I said, I'm not sure to use the word admire, but the enemy, but they were courageous. When we went over for a year. When those guys came, especially from the north, they may never go back home, or it might be 10 years before they go back home. So I have to respect that.
And when you think of, and here you're speaking primarily of the NBA.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Yeah. And so you say that, you're just kind of seeing what they're withstanding, all of this heavy firepower from the US, and they keep coming back and keep coming back.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any work on Wounded Enemy?
I spent 7 months in the bush, 5 months as a triage supervisor at the Marine Corps' largest medical facility. And I saw everything you could imagine there. And we did treat some of the wounded so they could be transported to the POW faculty.
Do you remember, I imagine there's a language barrier, but do you remember any interactions with these Wounded Enemy?
Finger pointing, you want some water, this type of thing. I don't recall any ill treatment of the enemy. There was one guy came in, an old man, and we cut his beard off. And I look at it today as a little bit of loss of humanity. It's certainly not shooting and killing people, et cetera, et cetera. It was just something so simple, which was real stupid, to cut this guy beard off. It didn't help anything.
It wasn't necessary. That was just something, done at that time. Was that in any way a challenge for you to take care of the enemy?
No.
Yeah. Corpsmen and medics I've spoken with say that one of the things that happens is, of course, we look at the corpsman as the guy who's going to take care of us, who's going to make sure we're taking the malarial pills. If I've got athlete's foot, he's going to, give me something. And then if I'm wounded, he's going to help me out. But I often hear that corpsmen and medics they also kind of become the confidant, the psychologist, the counselor, sometimes the letter writer, the letter reader, the guy I talk to if I get a Dear John. Did that happen?
Yeah. I had a couple guys that would ask me questions about relationship, et cetera. Do you recall the shootings in Las Vegas a couple years back?
Yeah.
I got a phone call from the primary radio guy in our team, and you could tell he's crying. And he said his daughter was there, and she didn't get shot, didn't get hurt, but she lived through this. And he says, Doc, what do I tell her? What do I do? I mean, this is on the phone 30 odd years later, 50 years later, and he's crying. And I said, comfort her, just put your arm around her, said it was okay. She's reacting like all the other people there. It's just the excitement, inner excitement of being out there.
When you use the word excitement, what do you mean by that? Is it the adrenaline or
Adrenaline. And the worst two parts is the insertion and the extraction. The insertion, you don't know what you're going into. Some of them were hilltops naturally denuded, and some were hilltops that the fast movers, the jets, worked over so we could land in there. And then the extractions, you don't know how close they were following you, if they were. That's how those two times that we got shot up, shot down, was the same thing. We didn't know. We knew they were there because they chased us, but until they started chasing us, we didn't know they were there. And so that's exciting, and of course, we were 19, 20 years old, and we thought we could kick ass of the world. And sometimes that's a stupid behavior to have.
Mm. When you say shot up, shot down in these helos, does that mean you did lift, but then the helos got hit, and then the helos had to go back down to the ground?
And when they went back down, the pilots took us over a ridge line someplace and dropped us there. And the reason they did that, they did not want a team, extra bodies on their helicopter. And so they dropped us again somewhere that we did. That time we had our maps, we figured out where we're going, but it was difficult trying to find a couple of points. As I forget what the exact word is, where they cross, that's where you are. And so yeah, that was exciting.
Did you ever have a situation where you needed a quick reaction force to come in,
Never, we didn't. Our team didn't have a reactionary issue. I take that back. In Dodge City, we were out there. Our job was to work at night and get our information back to the 1st Regiment, 1st Battalion, 1st Regiment. And so we're moving at night. We never moved at night before. And we were moving through rice paddies. We never moved through rice paddies before. We were always in the mountains. And we tried to cross a small river, and our point man named Vincent Ocampo, he's about 8 to 10 feet, and all of a sudden he's gone. Of course, we were smart enough to have a rope attached to him. And so he tried a couple more times. We just couldn't get across. So they came out with a 6x and took us to a Korean base camp. And we spent the next day with them. And then that night, we walked in and then came around the other side of the river and got in there. The second day out, and this is laughable, we had 18 to 20 troops, NVA troops, civilians walking past us. And we were about 20 to 30 yards off the trail. And they were being led by a monk, dressed up, a monk. And don't know, there's no way we could know what he was. Probably maybe just a monk. But that was funny. But then the 3rd or 4th day out, we had 2 NVA walk onto us. And I was asleep, and it was daytime. And I heard the M60 woke me up. And pretty soon there was 9 of us standing on a berm of a hill, firing at these 2 NVA running away from us. We only killed 1. 1 got away. How 9 people with automatic weapons firing at this guy? I don't know how he got away. So with that, the LT man was the patrol leader. And we moved to another hillock about 150, 200 yards away. And we sat in there. And then about 4 in the afternoon, all of a sudden we started taking a bunch of fire from the tree line that we had left. And a lot of people don't want to believe, but I carried 19 20-round magazines, confusing myself, 19 round magazines. They would hold 20, you only put 19 in. But I had 27 magazines, 19 rounds, 2 frag grenades, 2 smoke grenades, a Claymore mine, and my medical equipment. The machine gunner carried more than that. The radio operator carried more than that. Hell, he's got to carry the radio plus his personal weaponry. And anyway, so for all day long, we're trading shots. We really didn't see them. They really didn't see us, but we're firing back and forth. And the trees were it like confetti. And we were trying to get Marine Air to come and get us out. And they 1-1, the 1st Regiment, 1st Battalion was tied up in the crap. And so they were serving them.
Yeah.
And twice or 3 times they told us they couldn't get air for us. And then all of a sudden the radio operator is yelling out that, Lieutenant, we got birds coming in. And damn if he didn't sit down over 50 yards away from us between the 2 tree lines. And all of a sudden we had 3 rocket propelled grenades shot at us. 5 of the 9 of us were wounded, all minor wounds, thank goodness. And but the helicopter took off because the helicopter is worth more than 9 Recon Marines. But so he curved. He went out and started coming back. The 2 gunships that were with him hung over the ends of the tree line and just went back and forth spraying it. And the helicopter set down. We ran, and the crew were pulling us on board, and we got out of there. So it was a nasty extraction, but we didn't have to have a reaction force pull us up.
5 of the 9 were wounded. Were you one of the 5?
Yeah. Minor wounds in the hand and the forearm. They got a small piece of shrapnel.
So as a corpsman, then, and again, I'm just bringing to this other things I've heard. I've heard stories of corpsmen who were wounded and who either, pushed it out of their mind or whatever, but they didn't pay attention to their own wounds. They immediately began to see what the other wounds were like. Was that what happened in your case?
Not mine. We were hauling ass to the helicopter, and almost all the wounds were like myself. Minor shrapnel. Must have been outside the blast radius, but like I said, it was hairy. We heard the noise, looked to the right, and this fireball coming at you, and that was scary.
How many months were you with Recon?
7 months with them and 5 with First Med, and I wish I'd never left Recon. I saw things at First Med that I never hope to see again.
That time with Recon, so you must have just so many memories. I wonder if there are a couple memories that are especially strong in your mind, or especially stand out in your mind, or especially kind of just illustrate what that war was like. Are there a couple memories of your time with Recon that, seem especially important to you?
We call what we did, we worked. We worked this area today or whatever. I've got some memories of people. We had a kid named Hayes who came in the same time I did, and a young black kid built like a brick shit house. I would love to look like that, but he had trouble fitting in. And the first 2 or 3 patrols, he wouldn't, in the hooch when we were in the field, he wouldn't talk. He almost, you see, he was ignoring you. If spoken to, he would respond, but never started a conversation. And there was one patrol, maybe his 3rd or 4th. He forgot his rifle on the home LZ. And, so when the team leader found out, he moved forward, told the crew chief. The crew chief you see speaking, and all of a sudden, the pilots had that 46 on its side, like this, to go back to Camp Reasoner. And so obviously, he was not treated with any respect after that. And his ignoring us, we totally ignored him. He was given orders of what he had to do. Then we had a beach party. It couldn't have been too long, 4, 5, 6 days following that. and it was small boat training, it's called, but going to the beach, getting drunk. And we came back to Reasoner, and I was off doing something, and a runner came to me and said, the top wants you to go to sick bay, the BAS battalion aid station, and get something to knock out Hayes. Hayes is going crazy. So I went down and got a heavy dose of Thorazine. And when I came back, Hayes was sitting in the middle of the hooch with his rifle across his legs and saying he's going to kill anybody that came in for him. Well, the team leader came in from one end of the hooch, both ends had doors, and I came from the other. And we tackled him, and I jabbed him with the Thorazine. And within 30 seconds, 45 seconds, he groggy and out. And that'll always stick in my mind. And we heard that they should can him to the grunts. My friend was up at division headquarters, and he saw Hayes serving ice cream to the officers.
So I wonder what happened. I mean, this is a recon guy?
Yeah.
Gosh, you wonder how he made it through recon training.
Yeah, he didn't belong there. That was a mistake that someone made. When I talk about being chased, they're behind us, sometimes just firing in the air, trying to scare us, see what we would do. At that time, if there was a trail, we'd get on a trail for speed. But if you're on a trail for speed, they might be on the other side of that trail coming at you.
So you said a minute ago that you saw things in the, I forget exactly the term you used, not the field hospital, the where was it?
Triage.
In triage. So you said you saw things there that you wish you hadn't seen. So I'm not asking you to describe any particular thing. But I guess what is it in general terms that you saw in the triage center that strikes you as much more difficult than what you saw out in the field?
Okay, first, I think that whoever is trying to figure out if they're going to start a war, obviously way up in somewhere, they need to know what war is like. And the best place to see what it's like is the triage of any major hospital. We had a pilot come in hanging below a CH-46 in his ceramic seat that fried him like an egg. We had to take him, we had to unhook him to take him down, which meant that our hands were on charred flesh. The smell, that's tough. Then we had 146 that came in with 19 KIAs on it.
Wow.
And I helped. Like I said, I was a supervisor. Normally, I didn't get my hands dirty. That many coming in, I had to help them unload it. And picked up one guy, and half of him came out. And in that, the numbers, that was the most gruesome sight I saw, even more gruesome than the helicopter pilot. Then he had a redheaded kid, and that's how I describe a little redheaded kid. And he came in, his battalion brought him in, the corpsman, and he had tried to commit suicide, so he said, by slicing his wrist. He didn't slice him very deep, and it was obvious it was a fake injury. And so the corpsman took him back to whoever they were with. About 3 weeks later, they brought him in again. He was comatose. And he had tried to kill himself again by ingesting the chlorprimiquine, which is the malaria pills. What? Shut his organs down. So here's this kid, again, should never have been there. I would hope that they screen combatants now and put people like this kid in something where because he said that the reason he kept trying to kill himself, he didn't want to get in a situation where he would be a failure and his buddies would get killed because of what he did. Then we had a couple of heat stroke victims come in, and we had these big horse tubs of farm animals would drink out of. And when they would call us, the helicopters, what they're bringing in, well, we were getting ice from the galley and putting water in it. We lost both of them that I was there for. And then one of the most tragic things that I experienced, I worked with a guy named Goodwin. And some of these names stick right where they belong. And Goodwin was the type of guy, he almost had his 20 in. He was an E6, so he wasn't a firebirder. He just did his job. Anyway, he wrote to his two daughters and his wife constantly, and they wrote back constantly. Then all of a sudden, the letters started tailing off, and he committed suicide. And I was responsible for going through his belongings to send back to his wife. When you went through the belongings, there's two things. You wanted to make sure you didn't find love letters from Susie Q down the road, nor did you want to send home any pornographic items. And then you want to make sure somebody's responsible that they find money. The money is safely guarded and put away. So anyway, there I'm going through all this stuff. Had a packet of letters, and one was thick. And so I opened it up, and there was a used rubber inside that. That was his Dear John letter. And that's why he committed suicide. And shit like that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. So after experiencing all of these things, it would make sense if someone said, okay, I've done my time and now I'm going to go do something else. What was it that made you decide to stay in the Navy? You make a 30-year career out of it. You retire at the highest enlisted rank possible in the Navy, Master Chief Corpsman. What was it that made you decide to stay?
I loved the jobs I had in the reserves. I had some wonderful jobs. And I liked the people I was serving with. And I love wearing my uniform. And then, like I said, the buddies I made, can't forget them.